Good evening and welcome to another edition of the Gersnet Podcast, the independent Rangers podcast by fans for fans, but all the content is absolutely free. Coming to you in association with Forest Precision Engineering. I'm your host tonight, Brian Archer, and as always guys, we'd encourage you to get onto the Gersnet website and check out our forums for all your latest Rangers news and discussion. We've now surpassed the 6,000 subscriber mark on the YouTube channel, but as always, we'd always ask that you continue to share the pod on social media and spread the word. And if you're not one of the already subscribed members, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Before I introduce my guest for tonight, I need to give another mention to our partners over at Forest Precision Engineering. They're a Glasgow-based engineering company who have been a big commercial supporter of Rangers for a number of years, and we're delighted to have them supporting the pod. If you want more information about them, please visit their website at www.forestprecisioneng.com. And they also have a stunning executive lounge in the Ibrox main stand. And for more information on that, please email the club at hospitality@rangers.co.uk. Right, now to bring in my guest, and tonight I'm joined once again by my World Cup compatriot, Mr. Alex Anderson. Alex, it feels like a while since we've been on a pod together. How have you been?
Not bad, mate. Not bad. Yeah, I usually when you say we haven't spoke to each other since the World Cup, it means since the summer. But this weird season with a World Cup in the middle of it is pretty confusing. Yeah, I'm just looking forward to another night with yourself on this our visible and outward facing podcast, and hoping that you and I can set up a tangible mechanism that will allow us to have a two-way dialogue. I've been watching too much James Bisgrove. I'm psyched for next season. How's yourself, mate? Okay.
Yeah, I'm the same, just kind of counting down the weeks until the new season starts. I realised the other day the Champions League final being on June the 10th. There's only really a couple of weeks without any football, because I think Rangers start back pre-season end of June. So there's probably not actually that long without having any football, which is nice. You get a nice week break and then it all comes back again.
Except for us with the injury list as long as my arm. You know, we really need we could do it a couple of months, I think, you know, but that's the way it goes, mate. Yeah. Yeah,
maybe. Right, first thing I want to start with tonight is a bit of a look back. It was the 1-year anniversary during the week there of our Europa League final match in Seville. And I just wanted to get your kind of reflections on the game and the night and what your memories are from that evening.
I'll let you know when I've processed it, Brian. Honestly, I mean, I think I'm still trying to process the 2008 UEFA Cup final. I'm still kind of halfway back up the road from Manchester, stuck somewhere on the M74 emotionally when it comes to that. We're in a European final, then next thing I know we're in the bottom tier of Scottish football. I'm still trying to get used to that, and we're winning the top tier of Scottish football unbeaten for the first time in my long fat life. And then next thing we're in a European final. It was quite confusing last night. We're talking about the World Cup, messing about with the season. So Sevilla were at home last night at the Sanchez Pizjuan, in the semi-finals. We're thinking about Leipzig in the semi-finals, but that's the 1-year anniversary of the final. A stadium that's, for a lot of quite unromantic reasons, it's come to be a pretty horrible place for Rangers fans. It's kind of ruined the things that happened to the Rangers support in the Sanchez Pizjuan that night. It's kind of ruined my... I need to go back to the 1982 World Cup. I'm not getting into it. It's a whole kind of childhood story, and a really boring one for men my age are always talking about how that Brazil team in 82, kind of changed their life, and they scored some cracking goals into that very net that we lost that penalty shootout into, the very net that Joe Aribo scored into. But everything that happened thereafter made it pretty bad. And in a sick sort of way, I wasn't there. The big thing, the confusing thing for me last year emotionally was I wasn't there. I hadn't renewed my passport. Like half of the country during lockdown, I'd forgot to, because we couldn't travel anywhere. I'll renew that passport as soon as I can go on holiday. And I thought there's this fast track thing. I knew that they had that the passport. Yeah. I'll pay 75 quid if I've got to. I don't want to tempt fate. If I renew my passport, before the quarterfinals, before the semi-final, Rangers will get put out and it'll be my fault. So I was also moving house. I was buying a new house at the time, so that kind of distracted me as well. And I ended up, I didn't have my passport. The whole country was trying to renew their passport at that time, and there was people, trying to go and see dying relatives and all that. So jumping to the front of the queue. So I couldn't basically say, well, I want to go and see my team in a European final. But I didn't get there. And that was kind of emotionally confusing. But yeah, I mean, I'm still, like most people, I still don't want to know that ball wasn't over the line that Roof pulled back for Ryan Kent. I actually can't cope with the thought of that. But I think we should I should be more mature and grown up about it by now and just think about how it was just a magical thing to have seen Rangers in my lifetime. Though actually, I was 2 when we won the Cup, so there've been 3 European finals in my life, and I think in terms of the whole of Europe, the European football was just being kind of stacked against the smaller nations. That's probably the greatest achievement, I think, in European football history. Celtic did win the European Cup. You can't take that away from them. That's always going to be the greatest achievement. It should be as well. But pound for pound in terms of achievement, it's absolutely magical. It was a massive moment of catharsis from 2012, exactly 10 years later. And unfortunately, we're suffering from it this season. But that's what happens when you overreach yourself as heroically as we did this time last year. And what about you, Brian? Sorry, I've just ranted there for about 10 minutes. How are you feeling about it?
I've just been kind of looking back on the run as a whole, to be honest, and it gave me some of the best nights of my life. When I think back to the games against Dortmund and Leipzig at Ibrox, those are some of the best nights I'll ever have. And for the final, I was actually offered a ticket about 6 days before the final. I got a phone call offering me a ticket, and I was already on holiday from work, and I was like, I probably can't afford my boss and get an extra couple of days off. And then I looked at flight prices and hotel prices, and they were just through the roof, and I just couldn't justify it. But it was one of those that, if you could have made it work, it would have just been great. But no, it's that run will those memories will live with me forever. But yeah, so it's been kind of interesting just to look back on that this week. Next thing I wanted to get your take on was last weekend, Old Firm victory. Obviously, there's been a lot in the press this week about did it really matter? It doesn't matter. It's didn't mean anything. There's no such thing as a meaningless game, and certainly not a meaningless Old Firm game. But just what should we take from it, and how much should we read into it going into the next season?
Yeah, there was a lot of people going to a lot of bother to tell us how unbothered they were about that result last week, and that's always the first sign that Rangers. It's been a good day for Rangers when people are telling you that didn't count. When Rangers lose, we lose. When Celtic lose, they tend to change the subject. And I felt as if the argument about it being a B team, I think that was actually spot on, because Robbie McCrory's my third choice goalkeeper. Matondo was playing. He's been honking all season. How many games has John Souttar started for us this season? 4 or 5. He goes in and scores that goal. Ridvan Yilmaz, were second choice left back. So all this nonsense about it being a Celtic B team, suddenly the Celtic the depth of squad they had, 2 players for every position, it's not totally interchangeable. Last week it became we've got this set first 11 and half of them are missing, so it doesn't count. It was really good, Brian, and we really needed it. I found myself just this week, I just suddenly realised about Wednesday. I've cut the back grass. We don't have a big garden at the back, but I've cut the back grass, and I was weeding out the front. I've been, I think I actually hoovered on Tuesday. And it was only when I realised I was going to be going, wash the dishes, better do the washing up. And I went, oh no, that's what it is. It changes your life. It just makes your whole week feel so much better. So kind of energised by the fact that we've finally overcome this kind of hoodoo against Celtic. I think it was massive for Michael Beale, myself and Stuart last week. We're doing a preview pod and we were talking about how weird it was that there was still, big backing really for a Rangers manager who had failed to win his first 4 Old Firm matches. That's really unique. And the thought that he would go into next season never having beaten Celtic as a manager in his own right wasn't it right. It's changed the atmosphere again around Beale. It's taken us back to that moment, when he was pumping Hibs at Easter Road, pumping Hearts at Tynecastle. You're thinking, yeah, I can see the vision. I can see what Michael Beale's all about. He's got a great brand of football of his own, and we've had a few setbacks. The defeat against Aberdeen Pittodrie, defeat in the Scottish Cup semi-final, and he's responded to that by beating Aberdeen and then beating Celtic, and he gave him it was a proper spanking. So yeah, I think it changes the whole energy of the club in a way that's it's not going to. You can't alter the fact that we haven't won anything this season. That's really that's always bad for Rangers these days. But we go into next season knowing that we can really get under Celtic's skin. There are no great shakes if you have any kind of injuries or if we have any kind of anything about us. And it was lovely just to take the lead against them. We hadn't done that since Aaron Ramsey in a game they beat us in about 13 months ago. And the mistakes, the individual errors, we did have a couple. Ryan Jack kind of getting caught in possession, James Tavernier kind of kicking the ball into the, from the left back position up to like the front of our box. But we recovered from them no problem because we'd set the tone early, we'd scored the first goal, and it ended up, I think it was quite symbolic that the catastrophic individual errors in this game were suffered by Celtic for that third goal when their captain and their centre half crash into each other, and a lovely coup de grace from, again, really symbolically, a man who struggled to finish against Celtic, Fashion Sakala making it 3. So it was a lovely day. We really needed it, and it's changed it stopped any real doubts creeping in about Michael Beale as we start preparing for next season.
Yeah, I think it's just given a kind of lift to the whole place, and kind of trying to continue on that kind of good kind of energy that's around the club just now. The kind of new incoming CEO came out during the week and gave his first interview at Rangers TV. Some of the takeaways from me, two of the points that I kind of picked up on were around safe standing being back on the agenda, and there was more details came out around the improvements for disabled supporters. The disabled facility is something that I've got a personal interest in, and I'm glad to see that more information is being communicated out about that. It's long overdue for me for the club to improve these facilities. I think they're going to take it in a kind of 3-phase plan, and there'll be new spaces added in the Brooklyn, the Copeland and the Sandy Jordan stand. So if anyone from Rangers is listening, I'd like a new space that doesn't get obstructed by the VAR box, please. And safe standing's a topic that can divide opinion among supporters. So I just wanted your thoughts on both of those subjects.
Well, first, you must be raging, Brian, because you get to abuse the officials as they go up to check the VAR. You could get them told, it's a conspiracy if they don't get to Rangers. But I mean, it's, listen, I'm going to apologise to you as well. I remember this came up obviously during our World Cup pods. When the World Cup was on, we did a few podcasts about the World Cup itself, and we started every one of them with any kind of Rangers news that was going on. And I think it was the AGM that had followed the AGM from the previous year, but it was one of the most emotional. I was in tears listening to the man talking about, his pal in the wheelchair. Yeah. It was, I had no idea, Brian. And it was just, I was ashamed of myself because you're being selfish. I don't think about it. I'm just I'm just sitting in my seat. And I actually thought, yeah, that's right. The boys in the wheelchairs, they're sitting down the front. It's horrendous. Yeah. And I sat and I then hijacked, as I'm doing already with the pod, because I'm a verbose idiot who just wants to talk about Rangers all the time. But I ended up sitting talking for about a quarter of an hour about the state of the disabled facility. And you're like in the wheelchair and you're like, thanks, Alec, thanks for it. That actually affects me. I know what I'm talking about here, but just you talk over the top of me. So apologies for that, but I think it's something that really needs done. And I think was it Stuart Robertson at the last AGM? I thought he was a bit short. I don't think he came across well on that point at the last AGM. It was a kind of done.
They kind of gave brief mention of it as something we're looking at, and they kind of gave a nod to the fact that it needs improved. But it's good now to see that there does seem to be some real detail coming out, and there's we now know there's a plan in place, and they're going to do it over the next 3 summers, and they're now telling us where the new spaces are going to be, and kind of we get a bit more info on how it's going to look. So I think that's better. It seems to be much better that it's all being communicated.
Are you happy with that? But is it going to be kind of halfway up?
So they're going to put new spaces kind of in the upper tiers of the stands. So that'll be much better in terms of you'll get cover from the elements. So I think one of the main problems just now is, in a cold Wednesday night in winter, when it's raining, you get absolutely soaked sitting down there. So if they can create some more spaces in the upper tiers of the stands, then that'll definitely be a massive, massive benefit.
That's what we're talking about during that World Cup pod, when we're talking about this after the last AGM. I remember the night against Sparta Prague, and I think that what the fella was talking about. Was it Murray, the guy's name? Somebody Murray, Jim Murray. I can't remember the fella's name. That's terrible. When he spoke at the AGM about how disgraceful the facilities were for wheelchair users, and I was like, I remembered the night against Sparta Prague. When we played Sparta Prague, Giovanni Wayne Bronco's first game as manager, we had to beat them 2-0. Great night. I'm up the back of the main stand, but it was peeing down, absolutely tanking it down. And, you guys are doing the track in front of absolutely brutal. And I suddenly remembered when I heard that man talk that the Czech officials, I saw this going to be school, the Ibrox school, just across from the main stand on Edmiston Drive. the big VIP car, the big limo grand there with the little check flags at the front, and given private parking. They're obviously going straight into the director's box. And Glenn Kamara had been racially abused by 2 different Prague clubs, one of them being Sparta, in the space of a year. And we're giving VIP treatment to their directors while, loyal Rangers fans are getting stuck in the track. So it's high time something like that was done. And I think it speaks to something that annoys a lot of Rangers fans. This kind of binary thing goes on where it's like, it goes back to even Auchenhowie, when we were building like Murray Park as it was at the time. We don't need new training facilities. We should spend that money on new players and win the league. We don't need Edmiston House. We spend that money on new players and win the league. And it's like, no, but you can't. It doesn't matter how much you spend. You can't always guarantee you're going to win everything. And there's more to it. To be a lifelong fan, to get in that community. And I'm really proud of Edmiston House. I'm really proud I've been proud of Ibrox since it was basically rebuilt in 3 sides, like 40 odd years ago. And I think it's absolutely shaming what's been happening with the wheelchair facilities. So that's definitely, I'm really glad that's getting sorted out as well.
Yeah, it's good to see that there's going to be major change in that area. One of the other things that Bisgrove spoke about that kind of caught my attention was that he seems to be saying a lot of the same messages as Michael Beale in terms of how important this summer is for the squad overhaul. Now, to me, it seems like at all areas of the club, there's a real kind of synergy of message, and they're all kind of saying the same things and on the same message. For me, it seems a bit new to me that we've kind of got this structure now where all levels of the club are kind of aligned in their thinking. So hopefully that's a positive thing going into the summer. And obviously we all know how massive this summer is for recruitment, but is that something you've kind of noticed in terms of the talk about the summer? They're all kind of delivering the same messages?
There's a real feeling just now that things are happening. I was speaking about this, the post-match reaction pod after we beat Aberdeen at Ibrox 1-0, but the big news, the dominant news was that Celtic had actually officially won the league that day. And I was talking about how I wasn't actually that worried, it's not good enough, but I wasn't worried about the future, because I felt as if there was something going on with Bisgrove and with John Bennett coming in. It felt a bit, I was talking to Stuart last week and saying it kind of reminded me a bit of Lawrence Marlborough coming in. You'll not remember this, Brian, but he comes in as owner, kind of 1985. It's all kind of under the radar. Brings in this guy, David Holmes, as his kind of chief exec. Again, under the radar. Wee things were happening that we noticed, and then bang, Graham Souness arrives, and the whole thing went. And it's not like that. There's no direct comparison, but in terms of the energy that you're talking about, that's
Graham Souness did arrive during the week if we
well, that's it. You know what I mean? That's it. That's as if to prove my point. It's all very let's step it up a gear. There's things going on. And it's I was critical, a few of us were, about the banners coming out to get rid of the director of football and to get rid of Ross Wilson, to get rid of Stuart Robertson. I'm still a bit worried that people will now feel empowered by that. That can go too far. I'll be getting my banner out with your face on it if we don't win the league next season, because if we're spending his money in these facilities for the wheelchair guys, that's been taken away from my team. But that's it. I'm a bit worried that we think we can get rid of anybody we want just now, but I think it's been done the right way. James Bisgrove, I have to say that this whole language, you were talking there about synergies and all that. Maybe it's because I'm the kind of the working in these kind of companies. I'm usually the first guy, that gets dragged into the office and get talked about, streamlining and rationalisation. And you'll have other avenues you want to pursue, Alec, and you get home feeling like you're free and you can be your own man. Then you realise, oh, actually, I think I've just been sacked. I don't have any money to pay my bills. I totally dislike all that stuff, the kind of blue sky thinking, the jargon. It's always covering up something kind of evil. But right now, I have a kind of really guilty love of James Bisgrove. I'm really proud the guy's transitioning. He feels he can come out and tell everybody. Rangers are supporting everybody, anybody. I can see with his hairdo, the kind of quiff that he had at the front. He's obviously going for that kind of munitions factory girl, empowered feminine look of the 1940s. But a lot of people hate, anything to do with transgender stuff. I think it's because it secretly turns them on. And I'm the same with James Bisgrove. I keep going on about how, I hate the commercialisation of the club. In some aspects, there's too much, but it's because I actually secretly love it. I've got a scorched earth policy ever since 2012. Crush the rest of Scottish football. The top flight, I'm quite happy. All the people that supported us through the bottom tiers, get them up and make them the top tiers along with us, but get rid of the people who were dancing on our grave in 2012. And I'm quite happy for us to have somebody who can go in there and match Celtic when it comes to that kind of stuff. And he delivers. Bisgrove does deliver and what he promises, So there's a real feeling that things have been tightened up and all in the background. And it's, as you say, aligning, streamlining platforms, pillars, all this kind of stuff with the manager himself. So there's a feeling of we've got a lot to do, and it's going to get done. So I think if he knew Edmiston House, it's been done. They are delivering the profits. He was talking about going from 8 million to 28 million when he was commercial manager, Bisgrove, as he still is technically. So he's really delivered on the stuff he's promised before. So I feel like he's going to get the job done. And Craig was talking about this a few weeks ago in one of the pods. He's talking about Bisgrove's background. He worked for UEFA. This guy has made money for the Europa League and the Champions League, and UEFA do not mess about. That's practically extortion with these guys. So he's a bampot, Bisgrove, and that's what we need. Just like you need, a bampot on the park to sort out your midfield sometimes. That's what we've got in the executive board in the shape of Bisgrove. So I'm looking forward to next season. I think we're going in the right direction.
Yeah, I totally agree. I like how there's no animosity amongst the staff that have left. There doesn't seem to be any animosity there, and there does feel like a real freshness.
I think it's because he's threatened them or something. There's a definite kind of smiling face of the psychopath. That's what tends to happen. People who get their own businesses are really high up in big businesses like ours.
Yeah.
Tend to be pretty kind of horrible characters, and we need that. I think the stuff with the Australia friendly, that's a massive criticism of Bisgrove and the board at that time, and the whole thing he was talking about this week. The big thing was fan engagement. There's going to be more fan engagement. He's obviously he's taken that on board, but to me that was him saying, "I've got one job here, and that is to make money. You're telling me Rangers aren't making enough money. Well, there you go. There's some money." And the support come back going, "Oh, you've gone too far." It was almost like, we're talking about Graham Souness, when he arrived at Rangers as manager. Again, you'll remember this, Brian, but the first thing he said was, beating Celtic, just another 2 points. Well, it was 2 points for a win in those days. And he realised straight away, oh no, it isn't. It actually means everything. And fantastic, his first season. His second season, he's spinning Billy Stark 360 degrees through the air, taking him out at waist height. And like, no, Graham, you're going too far again. But it proves that these are guys that we can follow, and they're going to take us in the right direction. I've got a lot of problems with my jersey and what have you. I think morally it's pretty poor, but it's what's needed just now. Batten down the hatches, let's get ourselves back on top. And that's specifically what they were saying this week. We're going to become the dominant club in Scotland again. Yeah,
definitely. Now, switching to on the park, Miles, one of the players I wanted your take on was Robbie McCrory. Now, the rumours throughout the week have been that Jack Butland's move to Rangers maybe stalled. I think we were rumoured to get him on a free contract, but then there'd also been rumours that he's maybe thinking about staying at Man U. So I just wondered what your position on McCrory's would be in terms of getting into the new season. I've got to be honest, I've been really impressed with him. The games he's came in, I don't think he's put a foot wrong. I know people are saying that he's too inexperienced to be the number one, but at some point in time, Alan McGregor was also inexperienced, but was given the chance to be number one, and kind of look what happened. I think at some point he's got to be given the opportunity to kind of prove whether he can follow the Alan McGregor path, or maybe he's not quite at that level. But I just wondered, would you be happy to see him as number one next season, or do you think we need a more experienced first choice?
Being honest, I think we need a more experienced first choice. He's played 4 games. He's kept clean sheets in every one of them across 2 seasons. That's him. He's had 2 clean sheets in the trot against Celtic, Robbie McCrory, and in both the games he's played against Celtic, both at Ibrox, he's had people falling to pieces in front of him. With Ryan Jack, who I thought was magnificent last week. Ryan Jack was generally just magnificent last week, but he's given the ball away, getting caught in possession, allowing somebody clean through on Robbie McCrory last week. Robbie just puts over the bar, a fantastic save. And last season he had like Leon Balogun playing at fullback because we were struck by COVID and what have you when he was playing against Celtic at Ibrox that day, and he kept a clean sheet. So he took a kick to the face in his game against Alashkert and in Armenia when he played there in Europe last season, and carried on, kept a clean sheet. So the boy knows what he's doing. He's 23, 24 now. I think it happens with me watching a lot of young players coming through, or promising young players. It's usually the 3 or 4 game mark that you have the kind of honeymoon period, and then something, you'll find out all about them. It's difficult to be even playing him in these kind of the last 3 games of the season. Wouldn't he prove too much? I don't think about his long-term viability. I think this season, the past 2 seasons, Alan McGregor's made so many basic mistakes. We've lacked somebody to come off the line the way Robbie McCrory did last week. But I don't think you don't kiss the first girl, you don't marry the first girl you kiss. Just because we've got somebody who can do the basics that we haven't seen from our goalies, our main goalies the last 2 seasons. I think we're maybe getting too excited about Robbie McCrory. I hope, don't get me wrong, I hope he comes through and is fantastic. And he's been injured for a long spell this season. But I would definitely rather get a more experienced goalkeeper in for next season, and keep McCrory. Because as we saw this season with McLaughlin and McGregor, it changes pretty quickly who's the first choice.
Yeah, I wouldn't be against seeing him as number 1 if Bill came out and said, at the start of the season, McCrory's going to be our number 1, we're going to give him his chance. I wouldn't be against that, to be honest, if the deal for Butland fell through and we felt like McCrory could maybe save us a bit of money and spend that money in other areas without having to go and buy a number 1 goalkeeper. I'd be interested to see his development, but also take your point that you may feel that we need a more experienced goalkeeper in there, because I think being number 1 at Rangers isn't like being number 1 at any other club almost in the world, really, because we constantly compare our goalkeepers to legendary goalkeepers of the past, and we've had such a string of them that I think that can put extra pressure on goalkeepers that they possibly don't get elsewhere.
Yeah, correct. I was just lovely to see him wearing the traditional yellow Rangers goalkeepers jersey as well. Bobby Brown, Chris Woods onwards. It was cracking to see him in that shirt. But look, the manager's beat Celtic now, so we trust Michael Beale implicitly. Whatever he thinks is best is probably going to be best. Yeah.
Another player that there was some news about this week was Ryan Jack. He's signed his new contract. I don't think it was a surprise to me. I think a lot of people expected Jack to be one of the out-of-contract players that signed on. There'd been a lot of talk about Rangers need to be ruthless with departing players this summer, and people saying, "No, we can't afford sentimentality. We need to get rid of players as if we can just get rid of all the players and start again." It's not quite like that. Were you quite happy to see Ryan Jack given another year, or does his injury record worry you? And do you think maybe that he was a player we could have let go?
No, absolutely had to keep him. Absolutely delighted to keep him. Absolute star, Ryan Jack. I love him. I love him to bits. And I was delighted to hear the manager today specifying that he's actually played 80% of games since Beale's arrived. I think his injury problems are, absolutely a concern. They're more depressing and frustrating than an actual concern. And I think a thing that's happened with the support at Lars over the last couple of seasons, in particular, when you're not winning the league, you're not winning domestic. You're going to work on a Monday and you get Celtic fans in your face. They're telling you that European finals don't really count. You're lucky to get there, while their captain's on the back page of the record in the Sun saying the priority is to get to a European final. I think Rangers fans get kind of frustrated, and we started getting really uptight because we've got Kamara Roof and like Hollander out for the best part of whole seasons, or a whole season in the case of Hollander. Every other player affected by injury gets added to that, and there is a problem. There's definitely a problem there with the amount of injuries we've had, but I think it could be explained by, getting to a European, overextending ourselves last season in European terms, and then getting straight into the Champions League. It's brutal this season, having to get through 2 qualifying games to get there. But I think we've got, in Ryan Jack, a player who's out injured more than we want to, but apart from anything else, when he comes back, Ryan Jack, every time he comes back from injury, he's ready to go.
Yeah. You instantly see what you've missed when he comes back, because he instantly slots into that midfield, and he's
I think I've seen him about twice.
Best player in the park at times.
I think I've seen him playing about 2 games where he's looked. You can clearly see he needs to get his fitness back.
Yeah.
And this is the whole thing about all the injuries he's had. This is a guy who we needed to beat Celtic. We needed to beat Celtic for years in the league. And that epic game, Steven Gerrard's first home Old Firm game, we win 1-0. Ryan Jack scores a goal. Michael Beale comes in his first competitive game against Hibs, Sunday's opponents at Ibrox. Ryan Jack equalises on the night. He scored in that Scottish Cup final last season at Hampden with the goal we needed in the extra time. He scored the goal that ensured we were going to win that game, and put a proper kind of ending to the week that involved Seville. He comes in this season and he equalises against Aberdeen to take it to extra time in the Scottish League Cup semi-final. The guy's phenomenal, Brian, and he's even during 55 we scored a goal. I don't think it'd been that long. That's it. I don't think we'd been that long back in that game. I don't think it was the first game back or whatever. I'm just imagining this, but it was an absolute peach, and it was with the 100% record league at home. But that was
the 1-0 win, wasn't it? He scored the only goal in that 1-0 win, so he played a crucial role. That
was one of the really tight ones, and one of the other really tight ones was away to Kilmarnock. We only played them once away that season. Rugby Park's been a graveyard for us in recent years since we come back up the divisions, and he quarterbacked that game. Remember big Cedric Eaton playing out in the wing up front, and Ryan Jack was immense that day. A soaking wet Sunday, no crowd there because of the COVID, that horrible plastic pitch. He was fantastic. Just the way he ran the game that day. A lot of people hated the Ryan Jack, Steve Davis, Glenn Kamara midfield because they thought it was too defensive, but it's actually it's one of the most offensive when you know a kind of full tilt Morelos, Ryan Kent and Joe Aribo in front of it. They're just keeping the ball, giving it back to him. And the way he came in last week, he made that one wee mistake, but he platformed. You know, I'm going to use a noun as a verb, the way James Bisgrove does. He platformed. You know, John Lundstrom. When's the last time you saw John Lundstrom playing a game like that? You know, the best game we've seen from Raskin, arguably, and probably the best game we've seen for Todd Cantwell, amongst a lot of great games for Todd Cantwell. Yeah. Ryan Jack was just letting these guys do the business last week. I'm glad he's staying, mate. I love him.
Yeah, me too. The only other player, kind of out of contract player, I wondered if you think would stay or you would like to stay. Because I think we know about the other ones are probably going to leave in terms of Kent, Morelos, McGregor. I think it's fairly well known that they're not staying. But what's your thoughts on Scott Arfield? For me, I think he's worth another year because I think he's always good for a goal off the bench. He's a leader in the dressing room. I can imagine he's probably one of the players that drives the standards in training. And I think he also counts in the homegrown quota as well. So for those factors, for me, I would give him another year. What's your thoughts?
Yeah. Absolutely, mate. It's maybe more dodgy because Ryan Jack is 31. He'll only be 32 until next February or something, kind of more than halfway through the season. Scotty Arfield turns 35, I think it is in November. So, and he's more his game's more kind of athletic, if you like, Scott Arfield. Excuse me. So that maybe as he's getting kind of older, that's when he's going to get affected more. But this is a man he scored the first goal in the Champions League this season, in the Champions League group stages. You know, he scored. Michael Beale's first game in charge was actually a mid-season friendly against Bayer Leverkusen. Scott Arfield scores. You know, he comes on that game against Aberdeen at Pataudry. He comes off the bench, he equalises, and then he scores the winner both in injury time. He scored in the Scottish Cup this season against Faith Rovers. He scored in the League Cup against Queen of the South. He's just absolutely immense. He knows football inside out, and as you say, he's good. I mean, he's played for Burnley. He's played in the top flight down in England. Played big football down in England. He knows the game inside out. He loves the club. He gets the club. You know, he's doing the Bruni to Bruni in that same game I'm talking about where Ryan Jack scored our first winner against Celtic for years in the league. He knows what needs doing, and that's before you get into the technical side of things. I mean, he came on at Tynecastle, and the first time we played Hearts at Tynecastle this season, the 4-0 win. And he was getting this bit of slagging, even off some pundits, I thought. I think he missed a poor chance. I think it was kind of fouled in the box at one point, but he could have scored and blah, blah, blah. But he's running off the ball. He knows when to go forward. He was providing. Antonio Cholak got 2 goals that day. A lot down to the running of Scott Arfield. It's the nous he displays. It's unbelievable. I've seen Scott Arfield, was it Highland Road? The kind of West End of Glasgow. I was, there sometime last year, I think last summer. He's walking along the pavement. I know, don't want to get into the personal life of the players, or whatever, but he's obviously with his partner and he's pushing the pram. You know, he's pushing the pram, his kid in the pram, and he's pushing the pram. Gallus, gangster style. He's walking along. Yes, I am pushing this. If you're pushing prams, I'm going to show you how prams get pushed. And I couldn't see the kid. I'm too busy like adoring Scott Arfield, thinking I can't go and talk to him. He's with his family. He's like the other side of the road. But I'm damn sure the kid was in the pram giving it. Aye, I'm in a pram and we're having it. Let's do this, Dad. You know what I mean? It just. I'll never forget the footage you see when James Sands arrived. There's the kind of club TV footage from inside the dressing rooms when Auchenhowie, when James Sands arrives and is getting introduced, and you get big Leon Balogun doing the whole kind of German hippie thing, being quite philosophical and now this is a lovely club and blah blah blah, and out comes Scotty and just gives it Canada. Never mind, don't forget about Canada, mate. USA, no shit, they're getting into the whole kind of CONCACAF North American rivalry because he plays for Canada, and just instantly making the guy feel at home, but also keeping them competitive straight off the bat. As a guy, if he plays 5 minutes next season, it's well worth it, Brian. I absolutely adore him, and he needs to stay. Yeah,
I totally agree with you. Right, well, a quick look at Sunday's game were against Hibs away to Easter Road. Now, I think this will be quite a tough one. I think Hibs still have a chance to finish above their Edinburgh rivals Hearts, so I think they'll be right up for it. For us, obviously, we know the situation in the league. We can't do anything about that now. But is this all about building momentum to carry into the new season?
Yeah, I think so. I know a lot of people just want to write off, particularly now that we're beating Celtic. I know that's a kind of monkey off the back. I was only joking earlier, by the way, by saying we've beaten Celtic once, so we all trust the manager. I was trying to be facetious there. I think the manager's still got a long way to go before we all trust him, but I don't want anybody taking the foot off the gas just because we're beating Celtic. Rangers have never won all their post-split fixtures. They've never won the 5 post-split fixtures. The split's an absolute farce. It's designed for the teams who kind of get up the top end of the league. It's the way we've arranged it in Scotland in the years. It's getting more and more pointed towards 2 clubs having all the power. The more we try to exploit it for TV purposes and what have you, it ends up just condensing the power to fewer and fewer clubs. So you end up having to invent things like this split, which is an absolute farce to make it more exciting. But from a personal point of view, I want to see Rangers win all their post-split games. I always want to see us beat Hibs these days. If we beat Hibs on Sunday, we're 40 points clear of them. 30 points, sorry. 30. I'm getting too excited. It must be 30, is it? Yeah. We're well clear of them anyway, if we beat them. And it's like a kind of distance between us and Hibs. It shouldn't be a rivalry anymore. It shouldn't be. Yeah. We should be good at it. And I think it's been proven the last couple of seasons, the last 3 or 4 seasons, including our own unbeaten season for 55, that we really need to be beating everybody else. The capability is there. Celtic only dropped many points this season. That was one of the nicest things about last Saturday was we've probably given them their biggest domestic scalping they'll get this season. It was St Mirren were the only other team to beat them in Scotland this season. And they beat them 2-0. It was that's an embarrassment for us. It should always be us that give Celtic their biggest scalping at home in any season. So that was great, but we should be doing this to everybody else. And I think Michael Beale's also, he showed last week that he wouldn't bow down anybody by benching Alfredo Morelos, bringing on Lovelace and Lowry at the end. And I think he needs to show that he won't let players go on holiday now. He needs to be able to keep momentum going. And players should be fighting for the places they're fighting for a move at worst. We need to go there and give a doing. I'm not particularly worried by Hibs if it's down to us. We scalped them 4-1 at Easter Road in March when they were going really well. It's only a few games ago they were losing to Dundee United and Motherwell. So it shouldn't be a problem. It's down to us. If we want to do this, we will. And if we don't, then Hibs will be right up for it. They always are. But we should get these scalped, mate.
Yeah, I totally agree. But before we go, I just want to give a shout out to the Rangers women team who play Glasgow City at Ibrox on Sunday, and they need to better Celtic's result against Hearts to bring the trophy home. Good luck to the team, and we all hope that they can have their own helicopter Sunday. Right, guys, I think we'll call it time there. Big thanks to my guest Alex for his great insight as always. As well as being live tonight, the show will be available on all podcasting platforms: iTunes, Spotify, Acast, Stitcher. And we would ask that you leave a rating on your preferred podcasting app. The pod will be back in our usual Sunday evening slot to look back at all the action from the weekend's match. And I believe, Alex, you're hosting with Dougie and Stuart.
Yes, plenty of tangible mechanisms.
Great, I'll be sure to tune in. Until next time, guys, bye for now.